when you find yourself just staring at a website full of Montessori math materials, wondering, where do I even begin? What math materials do I even need? I cannot even tell you how many people DM me this question all the time or email me this question, which math materials to begin with. Here is exactly what you're going to do. You're going to focus on just these three first math materials, and then move on to other math materials. And you don't have to wait until your child is in that sensitive period for math, ages 4 to 5, 5.5.
Totally.
You can start right now, and you should start right now, because as you play with the materials, this is how you are going to gain confidence for teaching those math lessons later. So don't wait. If you have been thinking, when should I purchase that complete curriculum in order to find the math lessons and learn how to teach my child? What age should my child to be? There really isn't a too soon if you are looking to build your confidence. So let's bring out that very first math material, which is the golden beads.
The golden beads.
So I have some up here behind you. Would you grab that?
I will.
So here's what I have in my little basket of beads. It's actually kind of messy. Doesn't matter. These are examples of the Montessori beads. So in the example we're sharing today, we're talking about the golden beads. So I have 2 sets here, both that I DIY'd and was really, really fun to make. So I have this first set, looks like this, and I'm just going to get some of these out. You want to get out some of those 10 bars so that we can see what they look like. They're kind of bendy and, you know, not perfect. Who cares? They're for us, and they're going to teach our children place value.
Well, they feel so good in your hand, too. Yeah. They are cool and smooth.
And we also have some paper versions of these 100 squares. All right, and 1,000 cubes here. All right.
Yeah, so here you're seeing kind of a range, right? You can, and actually I'm going to go ahead and grab this one. So this is a pony beads version, and we made it with speaker wire and pony bead, or you did the work.
Well,
a long time ago. So
David participated. It was when I was teaching kindergarten, right? Actually, I was teaching 2nd grade at the time that I made these, not even kindergarten yet. And I came home and was thinking I want to make myself a set of golden beads. So I went to a Montessori school in person, and I studied their materials and I drew them. And then I came home and we talked about how to actually make them. And my mother gave me this old photocopy set of 100 squares and 1,000 cubes, and I just made them out of paper and laminated them on cardstock, and chose the beads that we found at the hobby store were these kind of peachy pony beads.
Couldn't find golden at the time.
Well, actually, I'm sure that there were some golden. I'm just sure that they weren't
They
very...
were probably too yellow.
No, I remember that there were some that were kind of gold colored, but they came in a very tiny package, and I knew that I needed lots of these beads, and they were also like 2 or 3 times the cost. And so it wasn't something that I found at my hobby store back then. So, but I did find an alternate color, and I went with peach. And there were lots of peach beads in that pony bead set. So I chose peach, and then we came home and we matched. We found some cardstock to match that peach color for the 100 squares and the 1,000 cubes.
So the point of that story to me is that the materials are in service of the learning. The materials are not precious in and of themselves. So here you have 3 variations. You have the version that you made 20-something years ago.
The pony beads.
And a card version. You have this more beautiful version that you made just a few years ago with a firmer wire, and there were these golden beads. They're really pretty. Also handmade, much more true to the kind you might buy in terms of like the
they have a
color.
nicer aesthetic because they're made out of
Yeah,
glass.
they're smooth and cool, and
They're weighted
the
and
color
they
is
feel better.
beautiful. But they
But
work do the same
honestly,
thing. They
they're
do
not as durable as the
no,
original set.
no, and they look because these are old. They've been around a long time and been used by a lot of kids, not just our own. But they do the same thing. Here is another version. These are the versions that we supply in our packets. When we every month we do a new packet of lessons with a lesson plan. And this month we're doing coil, and last month we did wheel. Here's giant.
Yeah. And we published a bigger version of these, I
Yep.
think, in Giant.
And so we always give printable copies of stuff if we can, right? And they're not as beautiful as these or
You
these.
actually don't have to have
But-
DIY'd a full set to get started learning how to use the golden bead.
That's right. So the point is that you can do this on your own pretty simply and start using the philosophy, the theory, the lessons. It's not the material that has the magic. It is your presentation of it. It's the philosophy and the theory. And that's why you can DIY so many of these materials successfully, including the first of our three, the golden beads.
Yeah, so golden beads are found inside our math curriculum. Do you remember where exactly they are?
Oh, they're everywhere.
Yeah, I mean, like they're used. I think that we start using them in level 3.
Yeah, maybe so.
Could be wrong. It's either level
Which would
2 or
be
level 3.
around most times. If you're level 3 in our curriculum, your child is probably about 4 or 5, which is just what we were saying earlier. That's like where you're at the sensitive period. Now there are plenty of great math lessons before that are included in levels 1 and 2, but you're going to work up to using these golden beads.
So yeah, you actually start using the golden beads a little bit earlier because as we introduce other concepts, you start to introduce these beads. It's when you start to introduce, here it is, like in level 2, I think is when we start really introducing these golden beads.
Yeah, we have what? Exchanging units, exchanging for 1,000, fair exchange game.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So they're wonderful. You know, I will tell you that a lot of parents will make themselves a set of golden beads or buy a set, whatever appeals
If you want to buy one, that's totally fine too.
or use our paper set, and they will discover that as they work through the math problems, so we're going to be using these for base 10 place values. So an example of a kind of problem that a 4 or 5-year-old might be doing with these golden beads is like 4,562 plus 2,784, right? That's an example of a kind of problem that a child who's not even in kindergarten will be starting to do with these beads. Montessori has a reputation, I think, of being a little bit academic in that way. I mean, people either think that like the kids are just doing what they want all day, or they're like constantly doing advanced math. Yeah. And it is amazing when you see what Montessori kids can do with these beads. Like they can, they're going to be multiplying 4-digit numbers by a single digit and sometimes even a double-digit number much faster than you think.
Oh, yeah.
So there's like so many lessons that just go along with these golden beads. And if you are on the fence about whether you should have one or not, like it is a no-brainer. You need a set of these. Whether you're going to be homeschooling long-term or not, having a set of these at home is going to be invaluable to you. They were invaluable to me when I taught in the classroom. Eventually, your child is, even if you did not take the Montessori approach from the beginning. Some people come to us a little bit later and say, is it too late? It's not.
No.
These materials are going to carry you through the elementary years. And you as an adult will probably, if you were one of those people who were kind of scared of math or scared of teaching math or not really sure if you're understanding fully the concept, like what actually does happen, in multiplication, what does that, if you just can't visually see it in your mind, this will allow you to visually see what exactly is happening during that process. Or like many of us learn subtraction with borrowing and we just learn Now I'm going to put a slash over that number, make it into 10, and then subtract one number from it. But
one from the right.
you're not really seeing what that borrowing looks like. And the golden beads are going to allow you to see the borrowing, to see the carrying, and to see, the multiplication. When we do multiplication with the golden beads, it's actually dead simple. People are really overthinking multiplication. So, for example, here's a number, 3,962.
Yeah.
All right. We want to multiply that by 3. What do most of us think about when we think about how to do that in traditional education abstractly?
Get my calculator.
No. Okay. We don't use calculators in elementary school, David. So
that's what I would think.
You're going to write the number down.
You're going to write it down, and then you're going to write
a little X.
Yeah, then you're going to write the other number. Right.
Right. And so you've got your
You're going to multiply
multiplicand,
each of the numbers.
your multiplier, and each number you're going to say, 3 times this,
3 times
and this,
3
and 3
is
times
9.
this. And then as you do that, you're like carrying over because you're doing addition with it as well. And it's very abstract, and you're not really thinking what it looks like visually. But with these golden beads, here is all you do. What did we say? Like, I can't even remember what number I made up, like 3,962, right? So you're going to lay out 3,000s in visual form.
Oh,
3,000s. And what did I say? 900? 1, 2, 3, 4,
Yeah, so
5,
3,000.
6, 7, 8, 9. And we'll just tuck these away so that they're not in our way. Do you have the little red basket over there?
I got that little red basket right here.
All right, we'll just put those away. And we'll just show real fast what we're doing here. Okay. So David is showing you here on our rug in a top down that we've got 3,000s. And we're going to lay those out just so we can see them. And we've got 9 of these 100 squares. And we can lay those out if we want, but we don't have to. And then what we're going to do is, what did I say? We needed 660. So I've got 6 tenths.
Okay.
So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And 2 units. 2 ones. All right. So here's like visually just dropping it on the rug, what that looks like. So we're going to lay it out place value style for our child. And so we're going to collect our thousands. We know that those go all the way over to the left. And all of our hundreds come next. Stack them up, put them right there. And then we've got 6 tenths and we've got 2 units. And I hope our top down is showing this nicely. So I've got thousands, hundreds, tens, and units all nicely laid out. And all we have to do the multiplication is lay this set out 3 times. So we would do this here. We're going to do it again underneath, do it again underneath, and then we're just going to add them.
Yeah, then you're going to collect them.
And if you understand how to do golden bead addition, then multiplication is no big deal. It's like so easy. And I think that even I had this epiphany when I started working with these Montessori materials, even after being in a Montessori school, growing up in a Montessori community, still after attending public education math for so long, once I came back to those Montessori materials when I was teaching kids at school and then teaching our kids at home, and I started teaching multiplication with them, I was like, why is anyone ever scared of multiplication? Because it's literally like you're just laying the same thing out several times on a rug. It's just addition. And children will have this epiphany as well. Hi there, Lucy. Oh, good. She says she loves her golden beads.
Nope, we haven't done the stamp game yet.
No, we're about to do the stamp game. So once you have this beautiful layout and you realize like, oh, so these basic operations, you don't have to teach them abstractly with paper and try and explain to your child why they have to mark out that number and put another number there instead. Like that doesn't make any sense. But when you are adding and you're like, oh, hey, I actually had these 3 left over, and now I'm going to exchange them, put them into the next place value. It's very concrete and very literal. So it makes a lot of sense and it's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you could do all kinds of really fun stuff. Let's grab that giant book. So, of course, there are the classic lessons, but then it's a lot of the fun comes from the applied. So, just as an example, in our constellation pack from, I can't remember when we did this, last summer, I think, we did an activity on tall buildings. And you would use the golden beads to represent these. Now, this was a huge hit on our community.
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
not sure if we have anybody in the community here, but we saw people making two-scale versions of these things in their kids' rooms for a long time. And this is something that you would do with the golden beads. It brings it to life, and it combines all kinds of other concepts too, like architecture and where are these buildings, and let's look at a map and what do they look like, and it's just a lot of fun. And those golden beads make it so practical and literal. They're just amazing. So make yourself a set.
Yeah, so much
Okay.
fun. All right, stamp game.
Now, real quick, Annabelle says she's excited to be live
okay.
today. I love your encouragement to DIY. Thank you so much.
Yes.
Absolutely. There are no gatekeepers allowed. That's our rule. Like, you have the power to use Montessori in your home. It is for everybody, everywhere. And we believe that so firmly that we will never not say, make your own materials. The magic is in the thinking and in the lessons and in the philosophy.
That's right. And it's in the teaching. It's in those moments where your child is manipulating something and they don't get it, and then just that aha moment happens. It's so magical. And that happens with Montessori, I think, a lot easier than with traditional teaching methods, because we do the concrete first, they get the concept first, and then it's not like we never teach math on paper. That is actually part of it. We move them from the concrete materials to the abstract.
Yeah, they're going from a
materials.
sensorial experience to a concrete representation of that to the abstract on paper or in their mind. And that's the progression. And what a lot of places do is they don't pay any attention to the sensorial stage. They skip the concrete stage and they go right to abstract. And if you're behind, then you're just like not good at math.
Right.
That is not how to do it.
That's
Okay.
right. All right. So stamps, the stamp game is, oh my gosh, it really, really speaks to me personally. Like I love the golden beads, and yes, we really have to start there, because the next step is to graduate our children a little further into their abstract mind. And so we start with those golden beads because they are countable. You know, you can literally count, the number of beads that is on a 10 bar and count it up to 10. And you can visually see that it is 10, right?
Or if you're using the colored beads, the similar concept, right? You're visually representing it.
That is right. But where do we go from here? How do we take the mind from this concrete state of being where we're literally looking at 10 and we're saying, okay, I'm visualizing this is what 10 looks like and feels like in my hand, and I can count it whenever I get confused. How do we take them from there to mentally conceiving of 10 as its own grouping? All right. And Maria Montessori had a brilliant idea for this. As far as I know, it is a Montessori complete original material. What she did was, I think she had a whole bunch of actual postage stamps in her in the classroom. Yeah, and also I'm sure she had like little wooden blocks and things as well, as she was experimenting, taking kids on to that next stage in abstraction. And so what we have here today is you can imagine that these are like little postage stamps. So we've got, this is going to represent your one bead, so you're taking your child and you're like, okay, this is the golden bead, that's the one bead, and this is the one bead that's represented in our little stamp. And then you've got the 10 stamp, and this represents the 10 bar. And so you're saying these are the same thing, right?
Yeah, so you're creating a relationship between the two.
Right. And then you've got your red 100 square, and you're saying these are the same thing. We're going to visualize this when we see this little red square.
That's
right. And I know maybe it seems a little confusing at first, but it's so brilliant. And if your child is worked with the golden beads for some time and really understands it, they're going to get this. They're going to be ready and excited for this next stage. And finally, we have our 1,000 stamp. And this represents the 1,000 cube. And you notice we've been using paper cubes this whole time and showing you the paper cube version. As a classroom teacher, I didn't have the paper. I didn't have the wooden block versions of the golden beads because I was DIYing this. I made one real cube out of the beads, and then I just said, like, these paper cubes represent this one.
So cube. So we had one. I remember that, and I can't find that block right now, but right. So there was one physical one, so that the child could really see all the beads or visualize it much more concretely, and then from there to the paper version, because it'd take a lot of work to make as many golden 1,000 cubes as you would need.
Yes, it would. Now, our members have been experimenting with that. I know some of you are watching this.
I know. And it's a good idea, too. I think, is this the one where they've been...
Actually, it's with the hundreds.
Oh, okay.
Hundreds, yeah.
Oh, you're right.
So our members have been making some 3D versions of the 1,000 cubes to represent it. So, and all it is, it's such an easy DIY, is you take the 100 squares and you're going to tape them together to make a cube.
Yep.
And if you don't cut them out first and you cut them out in the right way, and then you just fold them up into a cube, and it's just so easy and so much fun. And it's been great seeing them do that. But you don't have to. I actually have never met a child who wasn't able to make that abstract leap. Now, if you're working with a certain special needs population, maybe that's not the case, but I can say for most kids, we're talking about like 90% at least of kids who use these beads, they will be able to make that abstract leap with the paper versions if they're ready for it. And we're not talking about our 2-year-olds or 3-year-olds. We're talking about 4s and 5s and 6s, right?
That's right.
And if your child is a young 4 and they still aren't quite ready for that, you're just going to wait another 6 months and then introduce it, and then they'll be able to make that abstract leap. All right, so the stamps are beautiful and brilliant. You may have noticed that, well, I'll just show you. Just pick this up and kind of show you here.
Top down too, if you want.
No, you don't need to.
Okay.
So I'll just show you here. We've got our units and our tens and our hundreds and our thousands, and maybe this is looking reversed on the screen, but it actually goes from my left to my right, just exactly the way it would with the problem that you were writing it down, if you're writing the number down. And you'll notice that these two are the same color and these two are colored differently. And this is because we want our children to start to associate the color with the place value. And so the ones place and the thousands place and the millions place and the billions place, you just keep going. Those, and the 10, those are all going to be green, right? And anything that is like a 10 is going to be blue. Anything that's like 100, place value is going to be in the hundreds. And so, for example, it would go from your units, tens, hundreds, thousands. What comes next?
10,000.
10,000s. So that would be blue. All right. How about 100,000s? That would be red. And then what do you get after 100,000?
Million.
Million. And millions is going to be green. 10 millions is going to be blue. 100 millions is going to be red. And then what comes after 100 million?
A billion?
1 billion is going to be green. Okay, so you're teaching your child the progression, and this is going to make a lot of sense as you progress through the Montessori materials, as we will show you with the next material that takes it a further in abstraction today.
Yeah, so this is a caveat to the materials aren't magic, but there are some rules built into the materials that are important, so that you can DIY them, you can make them from whatever you want, whatever's best for you. But following this color coding scheme is important. Not only does it help the child make the connection between this 10 bar and this blue square, it's going to be essential as you continue your Montessori math over the next several years.
Now, you know that song, anything you can do, I can do better?
Sure.
I can do anything better than you.
Yeah.
What is that from? you
Annie,
can't.
get your gun.
No, you can't. Yes, I can. No, you can't. Yes, I can. That's how I feel about like the stamp game and the golden beads.
Oh, yes.
Because which one is better? Like you got to start with the golden beads, but actually the stamp game can do it better. It can do it faster. It can,
Oh,
it
yeah.
takes you further into abstraction, but you're basically doing the same stuff with it.
But that's the point, right?
It is. It's the point. It's the repetition. Experienced math educators will tell you repetition in math is really crucial for your child. They've got to experience the same thing again and again. And in the Montessori math, it's already built into the materials. They're going to do it with the golden beads. They're going to do it with stamp game. They're going to do it with the bead frame, which we'll show you in a minute. And then they're going to continue to do it through multiple different materials. They're going to do it through these colored beads. They're going to do it through the checkerboard, which is behind David. I don't know. Yeah, there you go. Now you can see it. They're going to do it in all different ways. They're going to do it through the test tube division. I don't know if you want to grab that down there and give them a very tiny preview. This is probably one of the scariest and most exciting materials in the elementary curriculum. But can you see, you're going to take the concept of these colors, and then as you progress through the Montessori curriculum, we're going to use those same colors. And so what you're doing with the stamp game is you are transitioning your child into that abstraction. H. Smith says, is that from a commercial with Mia Hamm and Michael Jordan?
They did use that in an old commercial. It's, I think,
Yeah.
from the musical Annie, Get Your Gun, though.
Yeah.
But I think they
yeah.
did. I do remember that commercial as well.
It's so fun. I love that song. And I love singing it with our kids because it's like a back and forth competition song. But that is how I feel about these math materials.
Yeah.
It's like, which one? And people ask me which one should I get? And I'm like, well, you got to have both of these because they're in a push and pull. And the magic with the stamps, I'll tell you, is that they are faster. So laying out the golden beads eventually is going to be laborious for your child because if their mind is moving into the abstract knowledge, they're going to be like, why do I have to keep counting
Now I've got
all
to
these
set out
units?
Another 3,000, 900,
Yes.
blah, blah, blah.
And each time you're like, okay, here's another, now I've got to gather another set of 10 bars. And, now I've got this massive layout on the rug because our numbers are just getting bigger. And so with the stamp game, we take that quantity and we're just going to condense it down to these tiny little stamps. And your child is just going to be able to manipulate it right there on the tabletop or on the floor, but the layout is going to be smaller and they're just making that transition into abstraction.
Yeah, let's show them what the number, I think the last time we did 3,000.
Okay.
Isn't that right? 3,000, maybe people out there can remember. I think it was 3,900. And 62. That's what I remember.
All right. So David's getting out 3,000 stamps, and I'm getting out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So if you're on YouTube, you're watching the top down. If you're on Instagram, I can pan down so you can see what we're doing. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 9. We'll see if you guys can see what I'm doing here a little bit. Yeah. Okay. All right. So
you remember what it looked like before with the beads?
Right.
Just big.
It was a big layout, right? We had 9,000 paper versions of the cubes, and we had 3,000, then we had 9 stacked up versions.
So you can imagine those cubes, if they were stacked, it'd be a big stack of cubes, right?
Yeah. But you can see this, the only thing with this is that I get fiddly about making sure all the 10s are going the right way. You don't have to, some kids, once they make that abstract link, they would be perfectly fine. They actually might not really care about whether the numbers are going the right way or not. Depends on if you have a perfectionist kid or not. All right. So that's kind of what they look like. And then you're going to be doing the same Montessori activities with these stamps that you do with the golden beads. All right. But it's going to be faster and your kid is going to be less frustrated, with the big layout. Now we're condensing it. It's getting exciting. We're getting the color coding in, and they're going to be able to go faster because it's a lot easier to like scoop these things up and then exchange them. So for example, I've got 10 hundreds here, but if I had I have 900s here, but if I had 10 hundreds, I can easily just grab them up in my hand and exchange them for one of the 1,000 stamps. So,
and even though you're doing the same, this goes to this, like, this is a much more abstract representation, right? So by repeating those lessons, you're helping draw their mind to how this and this are the same thing. And then eventually how this, the number 100 without the tile around it, is the same thing as well.
right.
And so you're walking them through something that's very hard, but going through that process, it's going to be a lot of fun for them, and it's going to give them a confidence and a joy.
That's right. Well, guess what friend is coming up next? It's the bead frame. I love the bead frame. Now, remember the mantra we have here. Anything you can do, I can do better. The bead frame says, hey, stamps. I see you looking all concrete there. Now let's do some mental math. So this is what a large bead frame looks like in Montessori.
Now, this is an oldie. You've had this one a long time.
I actually used this one in elementary school. So it's fragile, and the beads are like, some of the beads are a little bit cracked. I think it's so special to have this legacy material. You can DIY this as well. Before I was given this one, I made them out of
a picture frame, maybe?
Picture frames. Yeah. And I just took some wire, or actually I just used some really firm string. I strung them around. I hot glued them down to the edges of the picture frame, and I just strung on the beads.
And the colors are important.
The colors are important. You'll notice, again, just like with our green unit stamps, these unit beads are green as well. So we're carrying the colors along, and I'll just show you why this becomes more abstract. So I'll just set that right here for you. So to make the same number, we had 3,000s. I'll just bring my 3,000s over. We had 900s. I'll just bring those over. We had, do you remember, 2 10s?
6.
Sorry, 6 10s. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 10s, and then 2 units, right? And so this is what it looks like. The same thing that we showed you in golden bead version and in the stamp version. This is what it looks like on the bead frame. All right. It's so it takes even less space. It's smaller. It's still countable. But as we manipulate the numbers and add and do our exchanging, we're going to have to keep a lot more in our heads.
That's right.
So for example, what if we were going to say 3,962 plus 300s. Right. So you notice we've only got 100 over here. So we're going to end up having to exchange in order to add that extra 100, and we're going to have to do some mental math in order.
You're going to have to remember that 1, and you still owe 2 more. And
so I'll demonstrate this for you real fast, and don't let it intimidate you, but just this shows you what kind of mental engagement you're going through. So I'm going to say I need 3 more to add 3 more hundreds, right? So here I've got 100, and now I've got 10 over here. So I'm going to keep that in my head. I've got 10, and I'm exchanging it for
1,000.
1,000, because
10 100s.
10 100s is 1,000. So I'm just adding my 1,000 over here. Now I've still got 2 more hundreds to add, and now they're here, and I can add them. 1 and 2 more. And now this is our new answer. And our new answer is 4,262. All right. And all we did was we added 300. But you can see that in that exchange process, I had to really keep it in my head. And with the stamps and the golden beads, you're physically seeing yourself doing that exchanging. But here, you're exchanging with a bead and you're keeping in mind, okay, I still need to add that other 200 and I can't see it. So I'm going to add it in my head and know that it's there, make my exchange, and then bring them over. And so we're taking your child from seeing the very most concrete version of math to more abstract with the stamp game, to even further in abstraction with the beads frame. And then what is the step after that? You guys know it. It's on paper, right?
Yep.
It's doing it completely mentally.
And this is where you start to get into word problems and
Well, you can do word problems all along.
You are
yeah,
right.
You don't need to wait until you've done the golden beads and the stamp game and the bead frame to do word problems.
That's true.
But you're right that like thinking about the calculation mentally, thinking about that, we're making the transition into mental math.
Yeah, so you're in the kitchen and you have 4 guests and everybody gets 2 cookies. How many cookies? Well, it's multiplication, 2 times 4. You could grab your beads or your whatever, but you're working up to the point where the child is keeping these numbers in her head and then is saying 2 times 4, 2 sets of 4 is 8. Or whatever the math problem might be.
That's right.
Yeah, and this is where all the other things are coming in as well. Numeracy, fluency with operations, other sorts of concepts are flowing together. But these 3 materials are going to really be critical to unlocking that. And you can do so many fun things. Okay.